everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Mandala Effect. Today is going to be another wonderful episode with an amazing guest who I have known through my yoga practice over the last few years. When I was healing from cancer, I went to her yoga classes and I instantly felt a connection with her. So I would like to welcome Nix Brook, who is a wonderful breathwork facilitator. She's empowering people like you and me to help heal every level of our physical, emotional, and mental being, which in today's society is so important. Nix hosts retreats and workshops in London and worldwide. I'm often having a look on her Instagram, seeing where she is. And she's just launching an emotional health platform, which like an online studio, which we will go into later on in the episode because I'm really interested to dig into this. So, Nix, welcome.
Thank you so much for welcoming me onto your podcast and having me here with you today. Talk about
It's my pleasure. I think it must have been about a year ago that I first asked you to come on. And then you went on retreat and I went and moved. I think I moved, and then because I left London and you were busy, and then we just caught up again a couple of weeks ago, and I said, come on, and now's the perfect time because you're launching this amazing platform. But we'll get into that in a bit. Do you want to tell us who you are in your own words?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Nix. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I live in London, and really, what I'm sharing with the world is fueled by my own journey of spirituality, healing, and I just feel like we all have the power within ourselves to feel better and to not live in the darkness that so many of us do. And really bring that darkness into the light and bring it into consciousness and bring it into conversations so that we're not alone anymore. We're not alone in that space that we think, oh, is it just me? Because it isn't. Like, we are all going through this. We all have emotions. We all have mental health, physical health, soul health. And for me, it's really about just bringing it into the light.
I love that. I really love that, because I know for me, throughout my life, you often think that there's something wrong with you. Like, why do I feel this way? Is there something wrong with me, when there is that darkness? But actually, we just haven't been taught to how to kind of deal with it, and you can go to a doctor and they'll give you a pill, but that's not helping anything. You can actually learn to support yourself throughout life, and which is why I think what you do is so important. Yoga helped me massively when I was healing through my kind of process on many different levels. And then I came to one of your breathwork workshops, and I wasn't so I love doing stuff, right? I love going to workshops, learning about spirituality. I mean, that's what drew me to yoga. No, that's a lie. What drew me to yoga was the abs, but what kept me was the philosophy.
You're not the first person that's told me that. That's great.
And I really love it when an instructor can bring the philosophy into it, and it's like the whole class is a journey. So I'd been to a few of your classes, and then you had this breathwork workshop. What was it? It was a somatic. You called it something anyway. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I was like,
that's probably like a nervous system reset or something like that along those lines.
Yeah. And then it was probably 3 hours or something. And towards the end of it, we were lying down, and you said, and this is a special breath work. And it was the in and out through the mouth, because that's the technical term, I'm sure, the in and out through the mouth.
It's called conscious connected breathing.
And the energy, the emotion that came out of me, I was like sobbing at one point. but I felt so safe and so held, and I knew that whatever happened needed to come out. And then what I loved was the lightheadedness and the, who needs what is it, get high on your own supply. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I love that moment where people come to one of my workshops for the very first time and they've never tried breathwork before, and it just blows their socks off, and they are literally like, why do people do drugs?
Yeah.
Like, I know.
I know. It literally did blow my socks off, and it actually started a whole new journey for me of caring for myself, because I've since started a regular breathwork practice. But what brought you to want to be a breathwork facilitator? There's I know you were into yoga before, and how did it all start? Because nobody grows up and thinks that they want to be a breathwork facilitator.
Well, yeah, I didn't even know that breathwork was even a thing until, well, only 3 years ago. 3 years ago. But I guess actually my journey with the breath has always been woven throughout my life. I had asthma as a kid. I really struggled with breathing.
I was just going to make a really funny joke that mine was as well, because I had asthma and terrible respiratory as a child.
Yeah, exactly. I think so many of us do, right? And I remember having like panic attacks, and just, I'm sorry if you can hear that like lawnmower that's now gone off.
No, don't worry.
Okay,
Can't
great.
hear that.
Gotta love working from home. Yeah, so I kind of all had these kind of health things going on when I was little. And then I think it was about in my 20s, I started practicing yoga because I was just so overwhelmed, burning out, just being like, is this it? Is this life? Like, this is awful, really. And I found yoga at like a local gym, and I loved the teacher. She was amazing. And she weaved philosophy into the practice, but she also was really like challenging. And after about a year of practicing yoga, my partner at the time was like, oh, I haven't really noticed you snoring anymore. And I was like, thanks, darling. But and it was
Want me to snore again? I can.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. But what I'd realized was the only thing that really changed in that year was that I'd started going to yoga. So obviously that hour or a couple of hours a week where I was intentionally breathing in and out through my nose was shifting something physiologically within myself. So I was like, okay, interested, something here. Didn't really think much about it, and so on and so forth. And then, but I knew I loved yoga, so I wanted to go and do my yoga teacher training. And so I saved up whatever I could, and then eventually went out to Sydney in Australia and did my teacher training there.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was amazing. And I was 2 practices in that 4-week training period changed my entire life. One of them was a chakra class with someone called Rachel Coops, who is an amazing teacher out in Sydney. And we did this, I don't know, it was like an hour and a half, 2-hour chakra asana class. And in that class, I remember her, putting us in plank, and she told us to put someone that hurt us on our backs. The whole sequence was themed about the different chakras and kind of moved up from the root up to the crown. And there was a point where she was like, put someone that's hurt you on your back in plank and stay there. And you've got to push them off. And 2 years prior to this, I'd broken off an engagement, and I'd kind of basically exploded my entire life. I
know that feeling.
left the marriage, left the career I'd built for the last 8 years, moved out of the house, my first house I'd ever bought, lost pretty much all of my friendship group that were associated with that relationship. And I was just completely alone. And there was a lot of trauma associated with that. And in that process, I put the partner that, I was quite angry about on my back, and I could not breathe. I was there like gasping for air. Like, just, it was the most horrendous sound in the middle of this yoga class with everyone else being like, la la la, I'm in plank. And I was there like, not breathe. And I came out, and the person next to me was like, I was so worried about you during that practice because I could just feel your pain. in your body, like viscerally from your breath coming through. And I just felt like I had this elephant sat on my chest energetically for like a couple of days after that practice. I was like, oh, there's something in this. Like, I'd never really experienced energy like that before. And then at the same time, during that process of those 4 weeks, I did a pranayama class with my teacher, Kat Clayton. And we did this really easy breath. It's called a 3-part breath, or Durga breath, if you want to know the Sanskrit. And we did it in pairs. And someone was kind of holding the space for me as I did this practice. And during that breath, I began to cry. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Why am I crying from breathing? And everyone came out of the class and was like, oh, that was so peaceful and calm. And I was like, okay, well, I'm crying. Why am I crying from breathing? And I asked my teacher, and she was like, oh, that's completely natural. The breath can sometimes do that. And for me, it wasn't just that I cried, it was that I felt different. I felt lighter, like I'd let some of that trauma from the years before go. And I couldn't really put my finger on it. I didn't really understand it. And I'm a why person. I need to understand something. And it's not that I need to know the science behind it, but I need to kind of not just logically understand it, but really experience it in myself, to know the truth within myself. And so that kind of just projected me onto this course. And whilst I was teaching yoga, started to teach pranayama, did a 100-hour teacher training here in London with a guy called Michael James Wong, who's one of my kind of mentors and teachers. And I was like, these are all amazing techniques. They're really beautiful for nervous system regulation. But essentially, pranayama is about control. And I was already a perfectionist and a control freak. So, which a lot of people who do yoga are, because they're kind of drawn to it because it really resonates with what they already are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so, and I'll come on to that kind of a little bit later when we talk about conscious connected breathing. But it wasn't making me cry. So I was like, okay, these are beautiful techniques, but it's not making me cry. And I want to know how to kind of have that feeling again. I was kind of chasing that feeling, that lightness, that high that you talked about. And then I was like, okay, I need to understand more about breathing as a whole. I need to understand what's going on. So I went and did a training with Patrick McEwen, who is founder of Oxygen Advantage, which is all about functional breath work. And that was great. I was like, okay, I'm understanding what's happening chemically in the body when we do certain things with our breath, when we manipulate our breath in a certain way, which ultimately is what breath work is. It's changing consciously how you breathe to create different effects in your body. So that was great. I got those 2 trainings ticked, and I was like, cool. I still wasn't crying. So then I went and did a training with a guy called Alan Dolan. He's based out in Lanzarote, British guy. And that training just changed my entire life. And in the first breathwork session with Alan, I bawled like a baby. And I was just so amazed that this could come out of my body, that it was inside me, this much pain that I'd been holding on to. And when you come out the breathe, the first thing Alan says is, how do you feel in your body? And I connected with that feeling and that emotion. And I was like, I feel angry. And I never really admitted that I could allow myself to be angry. It was very much an emotion that was in the darkness. It was something I was scared of my entire life. And that was really the kind of, this is it. This is what I'm here to share. And this is what the world needs to heal. We need to connect with our emotions. We need to understand that the emotions like fear, guilt, shame, grief aren't bad emotions. There are no bad emotions, absolutely no bad emotions. It's just what we perceive them as. And really, emotions are just messages, messages from within your body that tell you how you feel.
Yeah.
So then you can choose how you want to behave, how you want to react, how you want to steer your course forwards. They're just messages.
Yeah.
And so for me, really, I haven't kind of said is that, throughout my 20s and all the stress of my old corporate job, that relationship that wasn't healthy, I was deeply depressed and also really anxious. So I was kind of a
Yeah.
yo-yo. And in 3 months of doing breath work every day, I healed my depression.
Wow.
And so for me, it's just, we all breathe. We all breathe, and we all have this skill and this gift within us that I want to share with people to help them realize that they can harness this power within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need the medicines and all the, I mean, they do help, don't get me wrong. And some of my clients come to me with those on different antidepressants or things like that. And I do see their use, but it's not a fix, it's a bandage.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting to the root.
Yeah.
And a lot of my work is going back to childhood, which is where a lot of our emotional imprint comes from. That's where we build our emotional understanding. And from that is how we then experience life moving forward.
So powerful, because I know for me, I mean, so listeners probably know, but I had cancer, and that stemmed from repressed emotion, probably anger. Not that I will ever know. There's never going to be a report on why you had breast cancer, but doing the research scientifically and spiritually, I understand that a lot of it is repressed anger. And I had a lot of repressed anger from my childhood because my parents got divorced and I was the happy, good, quiet child. And so all of these emotions that we call negative and dark, and that we're scared to feel, and I think we're scared to feel them because we're afraid we're going to get lost in them, they then get stuck in the body. And that is, that's what happened to me. I had cancer, and then I went on this journey of understanding, okay, so how do I learn more about emotions? That because I have experienced, I've never been diagnosed, but probably experienced depression and definitely experienced anxiety through chronic stress. And today's society is not built up to help support people with their emotional stuff, because we all have it, but we use a distraction. Now, yoga can also be a distraction.
Yeah.
But something like breath work, you can't ignore it, because it, like you say, it hits that with deep within you, and you don't need to know what it is.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, you touched on something there that I speak a lot about often with my clients or in workshops. It's like, we talk about physical health. We go to yoga to get the abs. We talk about our mental health, and, we go to the therapist, or we try and do these things to kind of clear our mind, but we don't talk about our emotional health. And this is how we experience the world, through our feelings. You walk into a room with someone, you feel their energy. If they're sad, you feel a little bit like down, and your whole body language, your whole physical body changes. If someone's happy and joyful, you get happy and joyful. Even then, I smiled, you smiled back. It's that energy that we live in, this reciprocal universe. And if we're all in this place where we're hiding from our darkness and we're closed off from it, you think about that, those emotions, you physically close off.
Yeah.
And so if everyone is closing off, like that, literally like shoulders drawing forwards, closing themselves off, building up walls in their heart, we're not connecting and we're not co-regulating. We're just trying to self-regulate on our own. And it's so lonely.
Yeah. Because it's when you let the mind get involved, that's when we go in, because our ego mind is there to protect us and to keep us safe. So it builds the walls. I'm in a process of shattering my walls, and have been for a few years, but the ego literally wants to protect you. So this is protection. Absolutely. Whereas one of my favorite things in in yoga is when the instructors say, well, we'll go into a pose that opens the heart, and you hear the instructor say, and open your heart. It's like giving you permission to say, yeah, we can crack open. I can allow whatever it is. I can receive whatever experience I am going through right now with an open heart, knowing that I'm going to be okay.
It's that belief, isn't it? That kind of, I call it an ember. It's that little ember inside that drives you forward, being like, I know I'm going to get through this. I know I'm going to be okay. It's like holding on to that in the depths of that darkness, in the depths of the depression, or the highs of the anxiety. It's like, I can get through this. And if you can hold on to that and keep searching for the answers, because as well, like, your answers aren't going to be the same to my answers. And, you know, we'll come on to Aether in a little bit, but that's what Aether is all about, is that it's giving you all the different tools to connect to your emotions, so that you know that it might not just be breath work that helps you heal. It might be yin yoga. It might be whatever tool
Yin. I think, do you teach yin?
No, I do training.
It wasn't you. It was whoever I did my first yin class with. It was at PYC, and I cried for the whole hour.
Was it Katie Oriel?
It might have been.
Yeah, I do retreats with Katie because she.
Yeah, it might have been. I did a lot of her classes with her. I cried throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I cry every time I do her yin. She's going to be on Aether because I'm just like, babe, you need to make me cry.
I need to come. Yeah, because this is okay. So let's talk about the importance of crying. I used to get told crying's not going to get you anywhere.
Oh yeah, I used to get told not to cry, so I'd cry. And don't get me wrong, love my mum to pieces. She's
same
gorgeous soul, but she would be like, don't cry, darling, because you're going to make me cry.
Oh no.
And she did it to me on the phone the other day, and I was like, Mum, I'm allowed to cry. And she was like, I know, but you're going to make me cry. And I was like, so cry. Like,
you're allowed to cry too.
It's this reciprocal nature again. Like, whether she's crying because obviously, like, seeing me sad makes her cry, but also there might be something in her that needs to come out, and it might be totally unrelated to what's happening with me, but it's still allowed in her. And that's the secret. It's like allowing it. That's the biggest rule in emotional health. It's like, whatever comes, allow it. Let yourself cry, let yourself feel, let yourself express what is inside of you into the outside world. It's so important.
Because it does give that, and everybody knows you always feel better after a good cry.
Well, it releases endorphins.
Yeah, and it's like a really positive thing to do. This is why we listen to sad music. Like, people listen to sad music, they watch soppy films, to help them feel, because we're so disconnected from it. And I think this is a really important part, is that we don't need to figure out, if we need to release something, just let it go without needing to figure it out, and without placing judgment on it. This is, over the last 6 to 12 months, what I've been learning in my own line of work. Like, don't judge it, because everything's allowed in this universe. Everything is the same in this universe of polarity. Just we need negative and positive, but that doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just is.
And it's interesting, you know, when you talk there about not trying to figure it out, you know, we can't actually put a language to feelings. We have to try and understand them cognitively, but they're feelings. And so, you know, you can in a moment be feeling gratitude, you can be feeling anger, you can be feeling pride, you can be feeling shame. Like, all of them are welcome. And so trying to then be like, oh, this moment I'm feeling X or Y or whatever it is, it's kind of impossible. But we try to do that to make sense of it, which is fine and it's needed, but it's not always necessary.
No.
I have people come, like, you know, yourself, come to a workshop, have these kind of life-affirming moments, and then they're trying to figure out why. And they're kind of like, well, just let it be. The answers will come. when you're ready.
And they'll come, it'll just suddenly one day make sense. It's like a resonation in the body. It's, oh yeah, okay, oh, I understand that now.
It's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Like that breathwork session is actually just the starting point. It's the starting block. And so you've got the rest of, I hate to say the race when we're talking about health, because there is no race in health, but it's like, it's the rest of, and I hate the word journey as well. I feel like X Factor ruined the word journey, but it's
really?
but it's the rest of the journey that then is actually where it matters, right? That's what we call integration. And it's integrating the knowledge, the wisdom, the healings, the understandings that you've taken from that session and integrate them into your life so that they are integrated into your day-to-day life, like how your behavior might change, your mindset might shift, how you speak to your partner might be more loving or compassionate or accepting.
How you speak to yourself.
Exactly. And you're so right, we need that balance of the two. One of my teachers, in her book, she writes about this castle, and we're all born with this great grand castle, and each room in the castle is an emotion.
Wow.
And over life, when you're little, you go into each room and you explore it, and you're like, what's in here? And you kind of get angry, you have the tantrum in the middle of the supermarket, and your mum's watching you being like, get up off the floor, or the mums that you see on Instagram now, they're like, join them and have a party. I'm like, yes girl, go for it. It's so good. But you kind of explore them all when you're little. If they're not shut down and shamed, they'll carry on and be healthy emotions through your life. But if they are shamed, if you're told to be a good girl and be quiet and sit still and don't cry right now, you're not allowed, or whatever it might be, you shut that door on that emotion and that emotional understanding of that emotion. If you lock the key, you throw it away. And then eventually you end up being this 2-bed flat where the only emotion you're allowed is studio flat, is, happiness. And I'm sorry, but like, no, happiness, this like elusive state that we're all trying to be, it's impossible. And we can't just be that studio flat of happiness. We are all of it. And it's about opening yourself up, back up to those emotions, remembering those emotions that you are allowed to have.
I remember a time less than a year ago, I was angry at something, and I felt, and I can't even remember what it was now, but I enjoyed feeling the anger.
Oh yeah, anger,
because I knew that I had to feel it. It was so good. And I was like, wow, I haven't allowed myself to feel angry for X amount of years. And here it is. And it's coming out. And I'm angry. And I feel okay about it. I was excited.
Well, this is the thing. So the reason anger is my favorite emotion is because it's not rage and it's not violence. Those are very different emotions. They're very different behaviors. Anger is it's a transformative emotion, and it's a driver of change. It's connected with the element of fire, which if you burn something, it will never be the same again. It's that catalyst. And so it gives you your no. Anger gives you your no. It gives you your boundaries. It gives you standing up for yourself and saying, this is not okay with me. So it gives you your authenticity to say, I'm okay with who I am. I don't need you to tell me that what I'm doing or what I believe in or what I'm saying isn't good or wanted or needed. It gives you that determination to like break free from the shackles. This is who I am, and I will not stand for that.
I love that.
It forces you to have hard conversations. It forces you to walk away from relationships that aren't serving you anymore. It forces you to make change in your job, your career, to fight for a cause that you believe in. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Yeah, definitely. Well, because anger and passion. So anger is it can be passion.
Yeah.
And that actually is something I've been experiencing over the last few days, is an anger that I probably didn't really know was there. And there's different, and it takes something really small to bring it out. And then, okay, so what is this anger trying to tell me? It's trying to tell me that I'm not doing something that I know I should be doing.
Yeah.
Actually,
a change maker.
It's a change maker.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I used that anger as fuel and created.
Yeah.
And that is actually, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. And that's it, right? That's that power that you talk about.
Yeah.
What often happens when we feel anger when we're little is we're shamed by it. The shadow of kind of this energetic center in the body, which houses anger, it houses shame. If we shame our anger, we close the door. And so we lose that ability to change and empower ourselves to, like I say, walk away, change the narrative, do something different with your life.
Yeah.
It takes away your power.
Yeah, it is. And we need everything, right? We need the softness, but we also need the fire.
Yeah.
We
absolutely.
need it. Okay, so say we've got somebody who is emotionally shut down.
Yeah.
And doesn't know how to deal with emotions, but is striving to achieve in career. As so many of us are trained to do, and we use career or whatever as a distraction.
Yeah.
What would your advice to them be? How would you get them how would you coax them into breath work? Okay,
so the little trick with that is like, well, not a trick.
I'm going to manipulate you into doing breath work.
No, the clue is in, if you're striving to, be the top of your game in your career, my guess is that you are, and this is just based on, a lot of people that come into my sessions, you're going to really care about what people think. You're going to try and control every situation so that you're, trying to make sure nothing goes wrong. You're maybe usually a perfectionist. And you really struggle with trusting and letting go, trusting other people to do the work for you or support you, or letting go of all the pies that you're trying to juggle all at once. Does this sound familiar?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. I have like because this was me, and maybe still is to a certain extent, but I have a couple of friends in mind as well. So if they listen to this and I get a message
like, that's me. I mean, this was me. So I'm really speaking from a place of, I know this feeling, and maybe you look at me now and say, well, that's still you. But what's happened with these very strong patterns that I used to have, they're softer. So they're still part of me. I'm still driven and I'm still passionate and I'm still like trying to do the best that I can possibly do. But it's not from a place of controlling everything. It's a place of accepting. And there's a very subtle difference. So for me, I can breathe someone and I can pretty much tell you what kind of personality type they are through how they breathe. I can tell you what emotions.
Everyone's going to stop breathing around you now.
I know some people are like, stop watching me, and I'm like, okay, I will do it a bit more subtly next time. No. No, I don't really. I really actually don't. It's only when I like get people on the mat or and I really start to just watch them breathe, and you just start to tune into their energy. I can see if people have family trauma stuff going on. I can see if people have sexual trauma going on. I can see if people are struggling to accept themselves and be themselves, if they're struggling to move forward. I can see if people have a disconnection with their mother energy, whether that's their own mother and something is, not connecting with that relationship, or their sense of their mother nature within themselves. And for women, that might be their connection to feeling like they can be a mother. I can also see if they hold a lot of fear in their body through that, perfectionism, control patterns, through, and then I can see whether they have got a closed heart or an open heart, whether they're willing to be open, whether they struggle expressing themselves. I can see all this through the breath.
Wow.
Just from how your breath, because essentially what happens when we're in survival mode, and we can be in survival mode from in utero to this moment we are alive right here, right now. And we're understanding our emotions from that point. We're experiencing the world. And so what often happens when we're in survival mode is that we go into fight, flight, or freeze. And actually what we often do is freeze.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that's freeze or flight, I do.
Yeah. And
Run
so
away.
run away, get me out of here. When we freeze, we block, we stop everything, right? We literally shut down, because in the wild, we have to pretend we're dead. So we want to almost not have anything coming in or out. We're like, yeah, exactly. We're rolling on our backs with our legs in the air going, I'm a beetle or something. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know where that tangent was going. But you freeze, and in that process, you freeze your emotions, which emotions are just energy in motion. They have to move to be felt, to be processed, to be released. And so when we freeze, we block that motion. And so instead of the emotions being released through the breath, because the natural way for us to release our emotions is through the breath. Ever watch TV, you can see the good actors because of how they breathe. They breathe with the emotion. And if you ever watch telly with subtitles on, they talk about the breath to help you understand the emotion that scene is being portrayed in.
Wow.
Really fascinating once you actually start to watch it like that. But yeah, when we go into freeze, we block that motion. And so instead of it being released like it should do, it gets pushed down into our bodies, and we push that emotion deep down and we hide it, because we think, well, either we just don't even think about it because we're so such in like a survival mode, or we're in that mode where we've been shamed or we feel guilty for having these emotions and we block them as well. And so they get buried in us. And so when I breathe someone, I can see where you buried it. It's like I can see where you buried the treasure. And my job is to kind of like, through acupressure, through affirmations, through guiding you through the process of the breath work, is to find the treasure and unlock it. And so in that, you're bringing, and it's funny that I talk about it as treasure. It's like, I think your darkness is the treasure.
It is.
It's where you find your power, your gifts, your ability to heal yourself.
Yeah.
Without knowing my anger, I wouldn't know how determined I am.
Yeah.
How driven I am. I wouldn't have now the ability to say no, to listen to my voice being like, I am not comfortable here. I need to get out of this situation. And I change. So it's like allowing yourself to feel all these emotions. And so that person, coming back to that person who is striving at work, I'd really focus on the solar plexus chakra, which is all about trust, letting go, serious control patterns.
Yeah. Wow.
And letting go of their exhale. And that's the thing. It's like, if you imagine as you breathe in with conscious connected breathing, you take a deep breath in and you sigh the breath out, and that exhale is like a letting go. It's literally you saying to your body, okay, it's okay to let go now. It's okay to let go of the control, let go of the fear of trusting someone. And it's interesting that that's below the heart. So once we kind of let go of that, we open our hearts up. And we can like, okay, my walls have come down. My fear is no longer there. I'm open.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
It's so magical. It's just so, it is a lot of the work that I do. I help people kind of understand that they can literally create their experience of reality how they want it, but they can't while ever they're avoiding a lot of this stuff and not letting this go. And we need to be in our hearts, and that heart and our hearts, you're not going to open it like that, but with time, with encouragement, with learning to love, accept yourself for all of who you are and everything you feel and your experience of life at the moment, then you can create change. But it really comes from trust and from letting go. And it is one of the hardest things to do, because that's not how our psyche, like the ego mind is built to do. It's built, like we've said, to protect us, but actually you're safer in your heart than you are in your mind.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because that's the ego center of the body.
Yes.
So once we move beyond the ego, you know, it's in that song by Ram Dass, can't remember which they are.
I love a bit of Ram Dass.
Oh, you know, or actually it might be Mr. Berg's, when he's like, you know, once you let the ego go, you discover it's not this big black hole of darkness. And it's that allowing yourself to let go. And it's funny that you mentioned, you know, that ego as well. For me, it's this center is like a masculine energy.
Yeah.
And we live in a masculine world, right? We live in a world with big concrete structures, with routines, with schedules, with having to be the best. Go, 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 going, going, going. If
alarm clocks.
Alarm clocks, my goodness. If you're not doing something, you're not achieving, you're not worthy of anything, or whatever this narrative we've been told. And the feminine is about being. It's about softening, surrendering, letting yourself be who you are, and going with the flow. No routines, no schedules, no alarm clocks, you know, living by the light of nature. And I'm not saying we only live in one, but it's about this balance again. But we've gone so far to the masculine, you know, coming back to our conversation about yoga and how it's about structure. Essentially, you know, you are on a rectangular mat with square edges. You are following a linear pattern of structure. You're trying to find alignment and control in the body, you know, and yeah, then you bring pranayama into that practice, because yoga isn't just about asana, and the breath helps you let go. But we miss that step.
Yeah.
We miss that softening. And pranayama in itself, to some degree, is masculine. If you think about box breathing, it's like inhale, pause, exhale, pause. And it's like this rigid structure to the breath. Conscious connected breathing is about flowing. It's about softening. It's about surrendering. And so that for me is why it's the ultimate breath to do, because we live in this masculine world. So why not give yourself an anecdote to this world that we're now living in, to help you surrender, to help you soften, to help you come home to yourself and live within the rhythms, the cycles of who you are.
Amazing. So how would you recommend then somebody get into a breathwork practice?
Yeah, so I mean, well, this is I've created this online platform, Aether.
Perfect time to talk about Aether.
Let's talk about Aether. So, because I had this dilemma, I was like, you know, I do festivals and I host workshops in London and kind of occasionally around, and I do retreats. But it's like, what do people do after? You know, these are just, you know, windows of moments. But it's, for me, about the continual healing, the continual journey. Yeah, you've got your starting block. What keeps nourishing you and keeping you going through the race? And so Aether was born out of this realization that you can take charge of your own healing. And I want to empower people to know that their healing is in their own hands, and give you a platform, give you a resource, and give you tools that you can lean on when you need it. And that might mean a daily practice. That might mean breathing yourself 3 times a week. It might mean doing a bit of yin, bit of breath work, bit of tapping, whatever it might be, getting into your body, getting into your emotions. And so Aether is, an online platform. At the moment, it's going to be on desktop, but eventually I'm hoping it will be an app, so it'll literally be in your pocket.
Amazing.
And then in there's going to be recorded breathwork sessions, so conscious connected breathing. So I'll be guiding you through the sessions and bringing in that philosophy again. So a deep part of, or a really what's the word I'm trying to look for here? A really important part of my process is connecting your energy to your chakra system, because we all have it, and really combining the West with the East kind of philosophies and understandings of the breath. And so the chakra system, takes us on this different journey of all the different emotional centers in the body. You know, root chakra is all to do with fear, safety. That's the first emotion we learn in utero until about 6 months old. And then we learn our emotional makeup going up through the chakra up until about 7. And that's our imprint. Okay. And then obviously we learn more on top of that, but those really set the foundations for our life. And so what we do in Aether is you can choose how you're either feeling or how you want to feel. And you'll be guided to specific sessions that will take you through that emotional journey. So whether you're trying to let go of fear, whether you're trying to let go of control, whether you're trying to open up your heart, whether you're trying to find your voice, whether you're trying to connect to your intuition, or, you know, connect to the divine or spirituality or whatever that might be for you, it's subtle. It's hopefully open to people that would never in a million dreams talk about the chakra system or anything like that. But if you're interested in it, it's there. If it's not, it doesn't matter, because it's still going to help you in the process as well. So within Aether, there's kind of educational kind of starter videos. So if you've never tried before, you can start and be guided on how to breathe. And then you can just start breathing yourself every single day, or as much as you like. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And the thing is, with this process and with Aether, you know, if you come and join us, there will be resistance. And we talked about that a little bit before. You know, it's like that ego coming up, being like, I can't do this on my own. I can't stick to a routine at home. And I just want Aether to be that place that kind of challenges you a little bit. But in the same process, empowers you to be like, no, that's an old narrative that I've learned from somewhere in my childhood or wherever it might be. In life, I learned I couldn't follow through, or I couldn't stick to a plan, whether that's a diet you tried or whatever it might be. You know, all these things that are kind of set up for you to fail.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Aether is about you coming home to yourself and learning that it's okay for you to feel. It's okay for you to be who you are, and hopefully give you those tools and those practices for you to feel at home within yourself.
Amazing. I think it's brilliant. And so you have breath work on there. What else do you have? Because you have some different teachers.
Yeah, so we have conscious connective breath work sessions. We have pranayama sessions as well, which I'm just calling 5-minute wonders. So if you just know you're short on time and you just want something to down regulate your system, they're on there for that. And then it's launching on the 22nd of September. And for the first month, I'm offering founders membership for like super discounted rate for the first 50 people, or up until the 22nd of October.
Yeah.
And then after that, you know, as we grow, we're going to be adding more and more different practices. So there'll be yin, there'll be restorative, there will be tapping, there'll be mindfulness practices, so different visualizations, meditations. I want to bring in sound healers, Tibetan bowl players,
wonderful,
gong baths. I want to create like sounds so that you can, you know, put it on and shake your heart out.
Yes,
I love shaking. Shaking's amazing, right? And just having like, you know, a place that you can be like, oh my God, I'm just going to go and shake for 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it might be.
Oh, I love it.
So it's just a resource for you to kind of really explore your body. And then each month there's going to be live masterclasses, which with different practitioners, whether that's a sound bath, whether that's, you know, I went to an amazing workshop in Bali about creative consciousness, and that just blew my mind. So I'm speaking to her and she's coming in and going to do a masterclass with us.
Yay.
And just different educational pieces. You know, we're going to have an Aether psychotherapist, which is on hand to kind of answer questions. But also if something does come up as you're going through any emotional journey and you want to speak to someone so you don't feel alone, there's going to be a way that you can either book a session with me and have a coaching or one-to-one, you know, breathwork session with me. But also we're going to have an Aether psychotherapist. So if you want to dive into deeper issues, if deeper trauma has come up or anything like that, then there's going to be that system and support system for you. Because like you said, and you know, before we hopped on this, we did talk about how lonely healing can be. And I think Yeah, and I think sometimes when in these online spaces that we're creating, and the internet's an amazing thing, but it's also a lonely thing. And I really want Ether to be that place where you can self-regulate, but you can co-regulate,
Yeah.
And it has that resource that you can ask for support when you need it.
And that's brilliant, because then you can take it everywhere with you, because sometimes it can be quite difficult to get to a yoga studio when you need that, and even so I use YouTube a lot for finding the practice that I want to use. But you can go on YouTube and get distracted so easily.
Yeah.
So actually having somewhere where you can go specifically, I know that I need this right now. I know I'll log on to Aether. I think it's brilliant. I think it's really valuable. And when I saw on Instagram that you were launching it, I was like, I think this is amazing. So I'm pleased that you're bringing this into the world. I really want you to tell me before we go why it's called Aether, because we touched on it before we started recording, and now I really want to know.
Yeah. Okay. So Ether is the fifth element. In the chakra system, we have all the different elements within us as well. So root is earth, fire is solar plexus that we've touched on today, heart is air, that's where our lungs are. And Ether is meant to be this kind of connection to spirituality, connection to the divine.
This is where I like to play, in the Ether.
Oh yeah, well, so interesting, because I like to play between, you are the conduit between the Ether and the earth. You are that central point that then helps, if you are connected with both, you can then create, you can then manifest into your life what you need. You are resourced from both spectrums.
Yeah.
But Ether, so the story behind Ether is, my name's Nix, and there is a Greek goddess called Nix, who is the goddess of a dark night. Oh, yeah. So it's interesting. I went to see an astrologer in Bali last year, and he was like, your life's work is to stay in the darkness. At night, all the stars get to shine. The moon's illuminated and all the stars are illuminated. And that's the work of the feminine, is to help everyone shine as brightly as they possibly can. When the sun comes up, the sun is the masculine energy. It's just the sun that you can see, and it blocks out everything else. So my work is to stay in the darkness, essentially. But Aether had a son. No, he didn't. Nix had a son called Aether. And so Aether is the god of a clear blue sky. And he is it says that Aether is the air that the gods breathe. And the G word is something that people either shy away from or they fully invest in. And for me, I have my own relationship with that. But I do think we are all divine. And I do think we are all connected to a higher power. And I think we are spiritual. And I think a lot of illness is created through spiritual crisis. And so, Ether is very much about bringing you home to explore yourself and explore that energy within yourself. And it really, it just was that final missing piece. When I was finding and searching a name for the platform, I found the word Ether, and I love Aesop, the brand, and I love the A and the E. And I was like, I've always almost had that little thing in my mind of being like, I'd love to have a brand with an A and an E. And then I found the Greek spelling of Ether, because normally we know in the West, Ether is ETHER, but this is AETHER. And I found it, I was like, oh my God, that is it. And then I read about Goddess Nix, and I was like, oh my God, this is just meant to be. And so, that's kind of how it was birthed.
I love it. It's perfect.
Yeah. So it just seems to all be slotting beautifully into place. And I really feel a lot of divine support with me in the process. And me 5 years ago would have never even spoken the word divine. So it just shows,
here.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows how much we can open ourselves up to consciousness when we kind of start to dive into these practices.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that you feel like this is slotting into place, it's guided. My teacher says that when we open up to the divine, when we open up to live in our dharma, we are kind of then protected in this divine protection system.
Yes.
And you're guided, and everything, you know, you're going to face challenges, but the challenge will be resolved.
Absolutely. I truly believe that.
It's amazing. And I just love this idea that we are divinely protected. And it's very, so when I started my kind of spiritual journey, I thought I had to be up here all the time in the ether, playing in the ether. But actually, no, what you touched on before was we need Mother Earth as well.
Yeah.
We need both, because we are both.
Yeah.
And that is and that has been a massive learning for me. But I think this is amazing, because now I literally get to go and play in the ether.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and connect to each energetic center in yourself. You know, if you're feeling like disconnected from your heart, you go and breathe into your heart. If you're feeling like you're disconnected from your physical home, your body, you go and breathe into your root chakra, and you just connect to these different parts.
It's amazing. And you know, there's science that backs it all up as well. So this is because I did a lot of my healing using Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations.
Amazing.
His most popular is Blessing of the Energy Centers, which is literally breathing, connecting with each energy center, realigning them, and somehow people miraculously heal. Explain that to me. But you know, he is trying to make all of this science, but it starts with spirituality, which needs trust and faith.
So there's a book that I read recently by Rick Rubin, and he says in the book, science is always trying to catch up with spirituality. Because we know the truth first in ourselves, right? And science is actually all about trying to prove something. It's all about, you know, and even if you look at medical research, you've ever read a book about science, there are so many rules and regulations about
this.
And trying to make something accredited. And I think our work in this life is to know what is true for you. What is your truth? What do you believe? Yes, you can read the books. Yes, you can read the scientific papers. Yes, you can go to school and learn all these things. But life is your greatest school. Let your life be your playground, your classroom, for you to understand yourself, to know yourself better, to know who you want to be, to know what you want to call into this life from the divine or from whatever it is. You know, I think that's our greatest gift.
Amazing. Beautiful. Okay, so one last question for you, Nix, and that is, you get to leave one message with the world, and everything else you've ever taught has gone. What is it?
Your breath is magic.
Yeah, and I think that's because people can learn so much in the breath.
Yeah, it's everything. Honestly, it's like...
And there's literally no life without breath.
There's literally no life without breath. It's the first thing you do is breathe, and it will be the last thing you will do. That in itself for me is just divine.
Well, and there we go. So there's a nice profound moment for us.
I'm getting a bit emotional about it. Like,
conversation to a close. Nix, it's been so wonderful to connect with you again and to have you here on the podcast. I'm going to link all of your Instagram, the links for Aether, because when this comes out, it'll probably just be about to launch. So I will put all the links in the description so everyone can connect with you, maybe attend a workshop in London, or I know you have amazing retreats as well. So which work with the chakra system and breath work, don't they? I remember you telling me last year about the one you were holding.
Each one's a different chakra system. So my next one's on roots, so it's like the root chakra.
Amazing, beautiful, grounding. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, darling. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Mandala Effect. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favourite podcast platform. I greatly appreciate your ongoing support, and the podcast wouldn't be where it is today without you, so thank you. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family, and let's continue spreading the mandala effect of magic and infinite possibilities. See you next week.